I just played a very interesting visual novel called Slay the Princess. Let's talk about it, shall we? Warning, this video contains frightening imagery, including blood and gore. I bought this on Steam the other day because it showed up in my discovery queue and the art style caught my attention. The title alone seems straightforward enough. There's a princess and it's your job to kill her. But that's just it. That's all the game tells you. As soon as the game starts, you're already on your way to kill the princess. According to the narrator, the entire world will be destroyed if she's allowed to live, but he refuses to elaborate further. He doesn't say how the world will be destroyed, he doesn't say why, he doesn't say what the princess has to do with any of it, and if you try to question him, all his arguments boil down to circular reasoning. You have to kill her because you have to kill her.
You're on a path in the woods, and at the end of that path is a cabin. And in the basement of that cabin is a princess. You're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world. I'm talking about the end of everything as we know it. No more birds, no more trees, and perhaps most problematically of all, no more people. You have to put an end to her. Don't linger on the specifics. You have a job to do here. Just get in there and do what needs to be done. We're all counting on you. Look, you're already on the path that leads to the cabin. Why would you be here if it weren't to complete a very important task? You've made it this far, you might as well reach the end of your journey. Oh, if only that were the case, but I don't make the rules. I have to say I'm surprised at your reluctance thus far, but unfortunately for the both of us, you're the only one who can pull this off. Like I said, I don't make the rules, no matter how much I wish I did. Then I guess we'll just have to see what happens. But a word of warning. If you go in prepared to hear her out, she could easily trap you in her web of lies. And the more you listen to her honeyed words, the harder it'll be to pull yourself out. Then each and every one of us is doomed. So sure, go, talk to her. See how that turns out for all of us.
So my initial thoughts going in were, oh, cool, the narrator's telling me what to do, but it's up to me whether or not I listen. So it's kind of like the Stanley Parable, except a lot more focused on horror. Right? I quickly figured that this story was going to be a lot more complicated than it presents itself to be. And I was right, but I had no idea just how right I was. As you might expect, the game has a large variety of branching paths based on your choices. And yes, I know it's a visual novel, but game is faster to say, so I'm sticking with that for the purposes of this review. Besides the narrator, there's a voice in your head simply called the hero. He serves as your conscience, but he won't be alone in that department for long. Just to get an idea of how this game works, let's go through two of the possible routes together.
You make your way up the short path to the cabin. You'll find the princess within. We're not going to go through with this, right? She's a princess. We're supposed to save princesses, not slay them. Ignore him. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Here's what happens if you completely obey the narrator and never question him. Once inside, he tells you to take the knife off the table and you do so.
The blade is your implement. You'll need it if you want to do this right. You take the blade from the table. It'd be rather difficult to slay the princess and save the world without it.
As you proceed down the basement, the princess calls out to you, already sounding very cynical and condescending before you've even seen her.
Who's there?
She sounds dangerous. It's almost as if she's the one in charge down here. Don't let it fool you. It's all part of the manipulation.
Oh, It's been so long since anyone's come down here. I was starting to think they'd forgotten about me.
You walk down the stairs and lock eyes with the princess. There's a heavy chain around her wrist, binding her to the far wall of the basement.
She's so coldly beautiful. Is she really a threat to the world?
Focus on the task at hand.
And there you are. Are you here to kill me or something?
The instant you see her, you don't hesitate for a moment and charge her with a knife, driving it into her chest.
You step forward, your grip on the blade tightening as you steel your resolve.
Oh? No talking then? Fine. What even makes you think you can kill me? I'm probably chained up in this basement for a reason, right? And if that knife is the only weapon you have, you'll have to get close enough to use it. So, you should just drop it. Best not to risk finding out what I can do.
She's unarmed. If you hesitate now, it'll be too late. End this. You lunge forward without a moment's hesitation. You feel flesh easily give way and look down to see your blade already sinking deep into her heart.
She's surprised for a moment, but then smirks and asks if you thought killing her would really be that easy.
Oh. This is it, isn't it? I'm almost embarrassed. I should have seen that coming. But I have to wonder, do you actually believe this was enough to kill me?
The voice of the hero begins to wonder if she really is dead, but the narrator insists that you not question it.
It's like she's convinced she can't die.
Yes, even as she lays there dying, she entirely believes herself to be alive and well. But it's over, isn't it? She stopped breathing moments ago, that arrogant look still plastered on her face. But is it over? Really over?
Odd, but sure, we accept that the princess is dead and go back upstairs. And, well, you get this.
With your work done, you make your way back up the stairs, closing the door to the basement behind you.
Why do I feel like we've done something terrible?
You did kill someone. Greater good or not, something would be very wrong with you if you didn't feel at least a little bad. But it was for the greater good. One of these days that will sink in and help ease your guilty conscience.
But that day isn't today. Let's just get out of here.
You open the cabin door, ready to return to a world saved from certain doom.
Only a world saved from certain doom isn't what you find. Instead, what you find is nothing at all. Where a lush forest stood mere minutes ago, the only thing in front of you now is the vast emptiness of some place far away.
What happened?
Everyone is fine. It's just that you and the cabin are now far away from them. Don't worry. You'll be safe here. This is good. Everyone is happy. You'll be happy.
Again, you don't want to question the narrator, so you'll just accept this as your happy ending.
Time passes. You can't be sure if it's days or months or years or even decades. It's all a wonderful, boring blur. You've never been happier.
Psst. Hey. We're not just gonna stay here forever, right?
Really? Well, if you ever change your mind, just let me know, I guess. More happy time passes, though the word begins to lose its meaning. Time, that is, not happy. Happy still has plenty of meaning. Please, shake yourself out of it. We have to get out of here. The little voice's pleas fall on deaf ears. Eventually you pass into a blissful state of pure existence. Though words like eventually and pass ceased to have any meaning to you long before that shift, you simply exist. Happy. Forever.
Funnily enough, the credits actually roll here, because in you choosing to remain perfectly still forever, there's no more story to tell. Well, that was odd and a little silly. Now you decide to do the opposite and go out of your way to help the princess. You enter the cabin like before, but you leave the knife behind. This time, the princess sounds a lot more innocent and friendly.
Hello? Is someone there?
It's hypnotizing. It's the kind of voice you only have to hear once to remember it for the rest of your life. Don't let it fool you. It's all part of the manipulation. You're playing a dangerous game by coming here unarmed.
You are? It's been so long since anyone's come down here. I was starting to think they'd forgotten about me.
But hold on, something isn't right. The last time you were here, you had the knife with you and she sounded pretty condescending. You could make the argument that seeing you either armed or unarmed affects her disposition towards you, but that's just it. She hasn't seen you yet. You're still coming down the stairs, so what's going on? In any case, you approach the princess and decide to talk to her.
You walk down the stairs and lock eyes with the princess. There's a heavy chain around her wrist, binding her to the far wall of the basement. She's beautiful. How could someone like this be a threat to anyone? I am begging you to stay focused. There's a lot riding on you here.
Hi. Do you think you can get me out of these chains? Okay.
Any question you ask is met with a non-answer.
Oh.
She pauses, carefully formulating her words before she responds.
You can address me as Your Royal Highness. Or you can just call me Princess if Your Royal Highness is too formal.
Is Princess her name or her title? What if it's both? Could you imagine being named Princess Princess?
I don't see what that has to do with anything.
This is the only time this is ever going to happen, but I agree with the princess. That's hardly relevant. Okay, but actually, what has she been eating? She has to eat, right? The princess hesitates before responding. She doesn't know. She's been down here too long to have any idea of what she'd do in another life. She knows what she'd do. She's just searching for whatever answer she thinks you want to hear.
Are you looking for the truth, or are you looking for the right answer? Because with the dynamic we have going on here, I don't think the specifics of what I do really matter. It's not like you'd believe me.
You feel uneasy, but still choose to help her by going upstairs to look for something to get her out.
You're only making this more difficult.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're making a huge mistake. No, you're doing the right thing.
It's at this point that the narrator gets upset and uses his storytelling powers to lock the door, trapping you in the basement with the princess, and you have no way of getting through.
You attempt to make your way out of the basement, but the door at the top of the stairs slams shut. You hear the click of a lock sliding into place. Is someone else here? Your shouts and pleas are met with silence. I'll repeat myself once again. You're here to slay the princess, and you won't leave until the task is done. You try the door, but it's locked from the outside.
You tell the princess, and then in a rather horrifying scene, she begins to nonchalantly chew at her own arm. Then the narrator throws down the knife you left behind in a not-so-subtle attempt at railroading, but instead, you use it to help cut the princess's hand off.
Against your better judgment, you place the blade against the ragged, self-inflicted wound on the princess's arm, just above the unyielding chain binding her to this place. You cut into her flesh. The blade is sharp, and it takes little effort to crack through the bone of her arm. Her limb falls to the ground, and the heavy chains follow suit. She didn't so much as utter a sound through the whole ordeal. No, she didn't.
It's pretty obvious at this point that the princess definitely isn't human, considering she doesn't seem to be in any kind of pain despite the circumstances. This is when the narrator gets furious and tries taking control of your body to force you to kill her.
She smiles softly as her gaze meets yours, blood from her wounded arm dripping rhythmically to the ground. How is she still smiling after everything? It's like she isn't even bothered by what just happened.
Thank you. Now let's get out of here.
No, we won't have any of that. The stakes are too high. You can't just let her escape into the world. No, I can't just let her escape into the world. As the princess approaches the bottom stair, your body steps forward and raises the blade. Wait, this isn't fair. You can't just do that. Watch me.
What are you doing?
You manage to resist, and the princess realizes the only way to stop you is to take the knife and kill you instead, apologizing the whole time.
Stop that.
Something's come over you, hasn't it? You know you don't have to do this, right?
Your body lunges forward, the blade held low, ready to sink into her heart. But the princess dodges, stumbling back against the wall before the blade has a chance to connect. Stop it. Stop trying to resist me. I'm trying to get you out of here alive. The blade. Move the blade. As your body remains frozen in stubborn resistance, the princess takes a cautious step forward.
We both know this isn't you.
She nervously reaches towards you and takes the blade from your infuriatingly rigid hands. What are you doing?
I'm sorry. I'll try to be quick.
She plunges it into your chest, tearing through flesh and sinew. It is agony. But you aren't dead yet.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Stay strong. We can tough it out until it's done. For her sake. For her sake? Don't you start pretending that dying a painful death is some sort of heroic gesture. The two of you have literally doomed everyone. Whatever. She sinks the blade into your chest again and again and again, and you feel every inch of burning pain that slices its way into your body.
I'm sorry.
She doesn't know how to use a knife, does she? Apparently not, though it doesn't matter how sloppy her knife work is, does it? A stab wound is still a stab wound, and it won't be long before you bleed out.
I'm so sorry.
With one last thrust of the knife, your legs give out beneath you. You collapse to the floor, your blood pooling around you, your limbs unresponsive. The princess stares down at your ruined chest as tears carve rivulets of pink down her blood-spattered cheeks. It can't just end like this, right? Oh, that's rich coming from you. As much as I'd prefer for things to have gone differently, I can't deny the reality of what's happened. The two of you made your choice. it's over. Everything goes dark, and you die.
Then, Chapter 2 begins, and you find yourself back in the woods, remembering everything. But you especially remember just how beautiful the princess was. What? Who are you? I'm you, of course. I'm the part of you that fell madly in love with the princess at first sight. Do you mind? I'm in the middle of a review here. But without me, how will the audience get to appreciate the beauty of the princess? I'm sure they'll manage. Tell you what, why don't you let me get back to work, and you get to silently fawn over the princess all you want. Deal? That sounds wonderful. Now where was I? Right. So, you remember everything up to the princess killing you, and so do the voices in your head. That's right. I said voices, because there's another one in there alongside the hero. More specifically, it's the voice of the smitten. Oddly enough, the only one who doesn't seem to remember is the narrator, and if you try to convince him you've already done all this, he dismisses it.
You're on a path in the woods, and at the end of that path is a cabin. And in the basement of that cabin is a princess. You're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world. I can assure you that you're not dead. And to answer your second question, you're here to slay the princess. I literally told you that a second ago. If he doesn't remember what happened, then maybe it's best to keep it that way. Yes, he didn't approve of us last time, did he? If we're going to save our beloved, we'll have to be sneaky about it. Our beloved? Yes, you'll have to be very sneaky about your intentions if you're going to try and save the princess. Ah, so all of the cards are on the table. Then you should know that we and the princess are in love, and the four of us will be foiling any and all assassination attempts you've got in the works. We'll see about that. Whatever you do, just be sure to ignore him specifically. It sounds like he's the sort who'd sacrifice the whole world for a peck on the cheek. What can I say? A world without love is a world that isn't worth saving. Those are two very different questions, but fine, I'll indulge you if that's what it takes to get you moving. Let's say for a moment that this really is the second time you've met me, or at least a version of me. You died last time, which probably only happened because you didn't listen to me. You were the one who did us in, villain. Well, not you in the literal sense, but you did everything you could to stop us from rescuing her. Oh, I wonder why. Maybe it's because the entire world was at stake. No lone princess is worth that price. I beg to differ. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to take a deep breath and assume that whoever is making the decisions here has the common sense to ignore your protestations. Anyway, I believe your second question was, what's the point of doing anything? If you're asking that, it sounds to me like you're making the rather dangerous assumption that your actions last time around didn't have any consequences. What do you mean? Of course there weren't any consequences. You forced the princess to kill us, and now everyone's right back where they started. That sounds pretty consequence-free to me. Yes, but in this purely hypothetical scenario, that begs the question of how you got back here. Did time simply rewind itself, or were you instead transported to a different world entirely? If it's the latter, what do you think happened after you died? Do you think the people there lived happily ever after? Or do you think that the princess, left unhindered, brought about the end to everyone and everything, just like I told you she would? She would never. She's a perfect angel that you cruelly imprisoned as part of some convoluted, dastardly scheme. Convoluted? I don't know how this premise could be any more simple. Princess bad, stop her, save everyone. That's right, you can't stop all of us. We're going to sweep her off her feet if it's the last thing anyone does. Are these really the sorts of people you'd like to align yourself with? You're not at the cabin yet. You still have plenty of time to reflect on the situation. I just hope for all our sakes that you make the right call.
You head towards the cabin again and notice the interior is very different from before, looking much like a castle.
The interior of the cabin is clean and elegant, its stone walls draped in fine threaded tapestries, a prison befitting a royal prisoner. The only furniture of note is an ornate wooden table with a pristine blade perched on its edge. The blade is your implement. You'll need it if you want to do this right. Very different.
Is it? I can't say I was paying much attention to the scenery last time around.
Maybe that's because you haven't actually been here. I hope this means you'll finally drop that ridiculous past life nonsense. You haven't died, and you certainly haven't been killed by the princess. So focus up. Stop letting yourself get distracted.
There's also a mirror that the narrator strangely doesn't see. If you go to touch it, it disappears.
That's because there isn't a mirror. There's a table, the blade sitting on the table, and the door to the basement. There's nothing else in here. There's definitely a mirror. There isn't. I'm sure the princess would tell us there was a mirror if she were up here. In which case she'd be lying to you because, again, there isn't a mirror. You walk up to the wall next to the basement door. It's a wall. There isn't much to see here. This really isn't funny. You reach forward and rub your hand against the cabin wall. I hope you know how ridiculous you look right now. But it was there a second ago, and now it's gone. Pity. We could have a feather out of place, and now we'll never know. We can't gallantly sweep her off her feet if we have a feather out of place.
Odd. Like before, you refuse the knife and head down. This time, the princess looks very much like a typical damsel in distress, fitting the title of the chapter. There she is, our beloved! I thought we had a deal. She's even more radiant than I remember her. If only we had a ring to give her. Just let me finish this, please. Anyway, you speak with the princess, and she remembers everything from the previous chapter, just as you did.
You walk down the stairs and lock eyes with the princess. There's a heavy chain around her wrist, binding her to the far wall.
My love, we're here to rescue you from your unjust and foul imprisonment.
You know she can't hear you, right?
She may not be able to hear my words, but surely she can hear my spirit.
Oh, your spirit's plenty loud, all right.
It's you, my dashing hero. I was so worried you wouldn't come back.
Did you hear that? She said we're dashing.
And she called us a hero.
So out of everyone, the narrator is the only one who has no memory of the last time you were here. But he definitely knows much more than he's been letting on this entire time.
Flattery really goes a long way with the two of you, doesn't it? Waiting for you to come back. I didn't want to believe your ravings back in the woods, but this is next to incontrovertible evidence. You've been here before.
That's right, villain, and you killed us. Well, she killed us. Only because he made us try and kill her. It was self-defense. Our beloved's hands remain unstained by cruelty.
And you've died before. So an entire world has been damned to oblivion. I'd really hoped I'd be the first, but what's done is done. What matters is you have a chance to do it right this time. Now, hold on. If she actually ended a world, are you sure we want to do this? Are you sure we want to rescue her?
We never saw a world end, and now I'm even more certain that we must chase our heroic and romantic destiny than I've ever been. I shan't let anyone convince us otherwise.
Are you listening to him? He's lost it. Don't let him distract you. Just do your job.
The narrator threatens to take over your body again, but the other voices call his bluff.
Then let me show you a brand new truth. Narrator, we courageously step forward and free our beloved from her bindings.
No, I can't let you do that. If you take another step towards the princess, I'll...
You'll what? Take over our body and force us to try and kill her?
I would if you had a weapon.
Not on my watch, villain. My passions contain titanic depths, and if you try anything that might harm our dearest, I will end our life without a second thought.
You wouldn't.
I would. I'd listen to him if I were you. He has a lot of strong feelings, and doesn't the world end if we don't stop her?
Even more odd, once you agree to free the princess, her hand slips cleanly out of the shackle, something that baffles the narrator.
You approach the princess and gingerly slide her hand from her bindings. That shouldn't have worked. I'll be damned. We're doomed.
I can't believe it.
But I guess I have to.
I told you, there's no life more worth living than that of a true believer.
I'm free, and you're not trying to kill me this time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
The princess jumps up and smothers you in a joyful embrace. Ugh.
Once you and the princess agree to leave, the narrator makes one last desperate attempt to stop you by locking the door again.
You and the princess walk up the stairs hand in hand. Ugh, look at the way she's smiling at you. She doesn't have to be so happy about this. And what happens after we walk up the stairs?
Let's see. Oh, isn't that interesting? The door slams in your face and the lock clicks.
That's a familiar move. Did I do that last time? Then you should know that you won't be able to leave.
But it doesn't work this time. The moment you try the handle, the door easily opens for you.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Like a pair of teenagers in love, you and the princess place your hands on the door together. Blech.
And
The lock clicks and the door creaks open. Are you kidding me?
I told you our love was insurmountable.
That's odd. Is it just me? Or is the narrator less powerful now than he was in the first chapter? Isn't it obvious? His powers of storytelling are no match for the power of the undying love between us and the princess. Well, you're actually onto something there. I'll elaborate in a bit. Can I please tell this next part? Sure, I don't see why not. Just don't spoil the important part. The narrator makes a plea for you to take the knife on the way out and use it to betray the love of your life, but you naturally ignore him. Instead, you prepare to spend the rest of your lives together in total harmony.
The blade, that's right. There's still a chance for you to do the right thing. Take the blade from the table and slay her before it's too late. You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're taking every opportunity you can to draw out the end of the world and make me suffer. I hate you.
That's the way out. We're going to leave together, just like you wanted.
What happens afterwards, you'll have to play the game yourself in order to find out. Hey, we can't give away the whole thing, then you'd have no reason to buy it. I just wanted to show you how much things can change depending on your route. But seriously, what's going on here? The story didn't just go in a different direction because we killed the princess in one route and were nice to her in another. There's more to it than that. The setting itself seemed to shift pretty dramatically once we started making any meaningful choice, and it only got more noticeable the longer we interacted with the world. Well, I promise not to spoil the big stuff, but I will give an explanation as to how this world works. I'm not even giving anything away, really, because depending on the route you take, the game will explicitly tell you as early as Chapter 2. The world you're in is purely theoretical, and both you and the princess have the power to alter it depending on your perceptions. Whatever either of you believes to be true, will be true. This rule not only applies to the world around you, but it also applies to the two of you. This is why the princess has such a different personality depending on whether you grab the knife or not at the beginning, even though you haven't seen her yet. When you take the knife, it means there's at least a part of you that believes what the narrator says about the princess being a threat, and so she acts cold and cynical. When you go unarmed, it means you believe her to be an innocent victim, so that's how she presents herself. This goes even further as you continue to make different choices. Chapter 1 will always end in your death, unless you go for the joke good ending where you kill the princess and accept the narrator's reward. And Chapter 2 will be drastically different depending on what choices you made. When we committed to killing the princess, we didn't hesitate to charge her with a knife as soon as we saw her. As such, she went down easily, because we didn't spend enough time with her to form an opinion of her. If we had hesitated for a moment and questioned whether she was armed, she would have revealed she had a knife of her own.
She's unarmed. If you hesitate now, it'll be too late. End this. I'm positive. I'm not. But we'll keep our eyes peeled. If she has a weapon, she'll have to draw it before she can use it.
Hesitating? Why don't you drop the knife and the two of us can be civilized with each other?
You charged the princess, blade in hand, but unfortunately your earlier suspicions proved correct. A blade of her own slips down her sleeve and catches you in the neck.
And in Chapter 2, she would have manifested as a monster made entirely of blades. Meanwhile, we would have gained the voice of the cheated because the princess got the drop on us.
Shit. In a sudden burst of movement, the princess leaps towards you, a blade erupting from her free arm, her wrist limp and empty from the violent expulsion. Huh. So I guess she did have a knife of her own after all. How conciliatory of you. We appreciate it, really. Now what are we going to do?
The same thing would have happened if we did run her through like before, but then doubted if she was really dead or not. We convinced ourselves she was dead, so she was. If we had inspected her body, well...
I guess I won't be dying alone after all.
Even after, when the narrator told us to just accept his idea of a happy ending, we could have chosen to instead go back downstairs and use the knife on ourselves.
Fine. Whatever. For the first time since time stopped meaning anything, you throw open the door to the basement and walk down the stairs. The princess's body is dust and bones, though the blade you used to slay her is still as pristine as the day you first held it. You pick up the blade, you stab yourself, and you die. The end. Nice knowing you.
If we did that, then in Chapter 2, the princess would remain dead but appear as a ghost. We also would have gained the voice of the cold, as the princess would see us as a cold-blooded killer.
And finally, the rest of the body floats up to join the head. Wait, this isn't right. What's going on here?
Ghost!
Oh. Wow. How absolutely terrifying. What's a ghost supposed to do to us?
Oh, it's you. Hiya, Keller. I was hoping to see you again. I have some issues with how our last meeting went.
Going back to the damsel route, we took every chance we could get in Chapter 1 to be nice to her and to try helping her. So, she manifested as a helpless damsel in distress for Chapter 2, and we gained the voice of the smitten because she saw how much we cared. When the narrator possessed us, if we went along with trying to kill her, it means we ultimately didn't trust her. And so, she would have manifested in Chapter 2 as a spiteful and untrusting witch who believed we were just trying to get a cheap shot, causing us to gain the voice of the opportunist.
Let's chat her up a bit first. Maybe we can find a middle ground where everyone's happy. Don't talk to her. You're just going to make things more difficult than they have to be.
Well, I seem to remember you having a tongue. Is that a joke? Do you think a joke will charm my trust back? You'll have to try harder than that.
If we instead decided to just go back upstairs and lock her in the basement, it means we were afraid of her.
One way or another, I'm going to find a way out of here. It would make it easier for both of us if you'd help. But if you don't, I can promise that you'll regret that decision.
You have to make a choice. Let's hope for all our sakes it's the right one. I know you think this is some kind of fair compromise, but it isn't. No one wins here. It's a chance we'll have to take. We can make this work if we just stay here and keep watch. No one has to die.
Where are you going? You can't just leave me here.
And once she had gotten free, she'd have slaughtered us while seeing us as a coward.
I'd say better luck next time. But we both know this is the end, don't we?
As such, in Chapter 2, she'd take the form of a literal nightmare while we gain the voice of the paranoid.
There you are. I told you I was going to find you.
As the princess approaches, your legs suddenly go numb. Your arms quickly follow. This is it, isn't it?
It's almost like you want me to get you.
There has to be a way out of this. Think!
What did you do? Pull yourself together. She isn't supposed to be like this.
I wonder how many times I'll get to play with you before you break.
There are so many more routes, but again, I don't want to give it all away, and now you have a general idea. The princess changes based on what you think of her, and you gain a new voice in your head based on what she thinks of you. Indeed, our beloved takes on so many forms, each beautiful in their own way. I challenge you on that, but considering your canonical reaction to the razor, I won't bother.
The princess's skin twists, splitting into red blooms of raw meat as it stretches and tears. And then it erupts. She becomes a wave of blood and viscera, pieces of her splattering against the walls. All that remains in the center of the room is a skeleton of blades. A heart beats furiously in its cage of a chest.
Are you ready for what comes next?
Holy shit!
She's gorgeous.
Absolutely divine.
Yes, behold, the perfect woman. Do you think we can throw her out the window?
But where does all this leave the narrator? Turns out, he never had any power at all. The only reason he seemed powerful in Chapter 1 is because you believed he was, which is why he was able to possess you. But the more you become aware of your own ability to alter the world, the less control he has over the story.
You pull against the door. The lock gently clicks open in response to your effort, and the door creaks on its hinges. This isn't right. That's not even the way it's supposed to swing. It's supposed to swing out.
You're not nearly as powerful as you'd have us think, are you? Heart, lungs, liver, nerves.
Anyways, like he said, you're not really in control here, are you? I never said I was. If I was in control here, why would I need you to slay her? I don't know. Secret reasons?
To give a perfect example, let's go back to the very beginning. If you refuse to go towards the cabin and just walk away, the narrator will have you find it anyway. If you insist on walking away, he'll summon an infinite number of cabins just to demonstrate his power before killing you out of spite.
You're here to slay her. If you don't, it will be the end of the world. Seriously? You're just going to turn around and leave? Do you even know where you're going? Fine. I suppose you just quietly continue down the path away from the cabin. Good. What we're being asked to do here is wrong. Better to wash our hands of this whole situation than to take part in it. Ignore that annoying little voice. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's strange. It looks like this path also leads to the cabin. How convenient. Everything's back on track again. Maybe the world can still be saved after all. You're really keen on wasting everyone's time, aren't you? It's remarkably selfish, if you ask me. I've already outlined the stakes of the situation. If you don't do your job, everyone dies. Like, dies. Forever. Your silence is deafening. But fine, you turn around and trek back down the path you came. Oh, would you look at that? You're at the cabin again. Now, I'm not normally one for superstition or astrology, but I have to say, it seems like the universe itself is doing its best to bring you to your fated confrontation with the princess. There's always a choice. Let me tell you right now that you're making the wrong one for pretty much everyone who's ever lived, as well as for everyone who ever will. And here we go. As you trudge into the woods, something strange starts to happen. At first, it's little flickers out of the corner of your eyes. Glimpses of familiar wooden structures through the leaves. But as you focus on your surroundings, you start to realize that those flickers weren't just a trick of light. In every direction, there is a path and a cabin. And not just a cabin, the cabin. An infinite fractal of paths and cabins desperately trying to draw you back to where you need to be.
Wait, what's going on?
But you're too stubborn for that, aren't you? It doesn't matter how many paths or cabins appear around you, you're just going to do whatever you can to shirk your responsibility because you care more about irritating me than you do about the fate of the world. You've doomed us all, you know that, right? But of course you do. Otherwise you wouldn't just wander off into the forest in search of certain death. You lose track of just how long you spend aimlessly tromping through the wilderness. But it's not like any of that time spent lost in the woods really matters, because it isn't long before the world ends and everyone dies.
If you try this in any of the dozen iterations of Chapter 2, the narrator will attempt the same trick, but it'll fail, because you've already died once and have started to question the world around you.
You're really keen on wasting everyone's time, aren't you? It's remarkably selfish, if you ask me. I've already outlined the stakes of the situation. If you don't do your job, everyone dies. Like, dies. Forever. But fine, you turn around and trek back down the path you came.
Wait, something isn't right. Can you still hear me? You're supposed to wind up back at the cabin again. But everything is getting fuzzy.
Heck, in some routes, it even gets to the point where the other voices steal his job of telling the story.
You're on a path in the woods.
No, fuck that. If we're gonna have to keep doing this over and over and over again, we're not starting in that goddamn woods every time. We're starting in the fucking cabin.
You're what? The interior of the cabin is sharp, a constricting mess of curved and battered sheet metal pushing you towards... Wait, excuse me? What just happened? What did you just do?
I feel dizzy. Oh ho ho ho! I guess I took us to the cabin, didn't I? Isn't that interesting? Who holds the cards now?
I know it probably seems like I gave away a lot of the story, but I assure you, I haven't even scratched the surface. I've played to the end about 5 times now, and I still only have about 2/3 of the achievements, so there's still a lot I've yet to see. I also hear the creators are working on a free expansion called the Pristine Cut, which will supposedly provide several more routes to take as well as building on existing ones. Wait, does that mean there will be even more versions of the Fair Maiden to admire? Alright, this is getting old. Back you go into my subconscious. My heart will always belong to you, princess! Okay, better wrap this up before any more voices interrupt. To summarize my thoughts, Slay the Princess is an amazing game filled with equal parts humor, horror, and romance. It gets surprisingly deep and introspective at certain points, but never comes off as pretentious. The voice acting is incredible, the dialogue is witty, and the art style is breathtaking. If I've caught your interest, the game is available on Steam for less than $20. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more amateur story time.
This is it. I have no idea what it's gonna be like out there. Not that I'm scared or anything. It's exciting, really. Anything could happen. And if it's bad, then it won't be bad. Not with you. I love you too. But I'm trying not to be sappy about it. Don't make me get all emotional.